Guys, I'm about to share with you a new way you're going to fish your big worm this summer, and that is with the Ozark rig by Core Tackle. Guys, I've already had success with this in recent trips. I'm going to go more in depth on how this hook right here is going to change how you're going to fish the big worm, and we're going to go more in depth on fishing the big worm in the summer. Okay guys, down here where I'm at, I'm in the central to south, and man, big worm season's upon us. I love fishing the big worm, and I know as June and July comes, this right here is a staple for fishing offshore in the summer, or even fishing shallow like you're seeing right behind me. Guys, I remember even in about this time, it's right May right now, about end of May, where I just go flip lily pads on the Arkansas River with a Texas rig worm and catch fish, and even down there in my other shallower areas as well. But guys, as you also know, throwing this offshore on brush piles, road beds, fishing on your points, your rock, I mean, it catches fish everywhere, okay? So many different ways to kind of retrieve it, different ways to kind of just go about how you fish a big worm. You can fish it in your grass. But guys, now we have a new hook to do it. Instead of your traditional EWG or your worm hook, we now have the Ozark rig right here, which was made by Johnny and Matt with Core Tackle. This hook is, as you know guys, I've talked about before on the channel, you can fish your soft plastics on it or your creature baits on it, as I've already have. But what it kind of does is replace the Texas rig. And I don't actually have a Texas rig right now. I've been throwing this. One, because the fish have been seeing Texas rigs forever, and this gives your baits a different action. Instead of that weight, traditional here, and it falls down, it now kind of glides in the water. Some worms, it even kind of has a little quiver action. The little finesse worm by X-Zone has that quiver action. But guys, right here, this is just a traditional big worm. This is the V&M Wild Thing. One reason I like throwing the Wild Thing lately is because it floats. Know the difference between your worms. Like the Zumo Monster, these dudes here, they're real heavy and salt, they sink, okay? So lately I've been throwing this to try to give it more of that gliding, more of that just action, and then when it's on the bottom, that tail and everything goes, and when I'm working it, just kind of lets it work more. But guys, I know one thing I've heard already amongst people, and I've not had a problem with it yet, is that this hook gap's not big enough and that you need more of a gap. But guys, I know with, like I've fished with a lot of people, and I like to always use the big old EWGs, but some guys will just use those offset worm hooks, and it's about the same size as this right here. Another thing I've heard about is this weight being right here, of course, can get in the way and maybe help lose fish. I've lost a couple, but I've not lost as many fish due to the hook. I think it's just them getting the tail. But talking to Matt, who's fished this a bunch, flipping, he's fished it more cover and stuff around me. He's not had any problems with it. And if he did, it wouldn't be for sale right now for you guys. That's one thing about Matt and Johnny. They don't want to just try to get you. But now, guys, one thing I will share just from my experience. Lately, I've been throwing it in brush piles, okay? Throwing it brush piles. I flipped it around some docks today. But one thing that I will say is I do know, I've heard a lot of people say it's hard to get this on. And even right here, like now when you're fishing it in brush with this right here, it does kind of get snagged, and that's kind of hop, you know, kind of work it a little, and it'll come right out. But one thing I will say is I have this right here. Here's some glue. I've used this a little bit, is after if I catch a fish and it kind of gets torn up, and I've been trying to glue it just to see if it's still, you know, the worm work, and you can get another fish catch or two out of it. If you're one of those guys that's like, hey, this is tearing up my soft plastics, Jimmy, I've heard just other people tell me that. But guys, I've got the glue I've been testing out. This one in here is not glue. I'm just going to go ahead and tear this one off. I'll use this in a little bit. But guys, I'm just going to go ahead and put one of these worms on for you real quick. Then we're going to talk more on the retrieve and the equipment. So guys, here I have the Wild Thing right here. Is what I just had on. But I'm going to go ahead and put on, let's put on the 6 cents worm right here. Let's just go ahead. What we got here? We got the 6 cents. What do they call this thing again? The Busa worm? Yeah, the old Busa worm, okay? So I'm going to go ahead and put this on for you guys here. So one thing I like to do is I'm not going to go too much. So there we go, about right there, all right? And then you just kind of slide this dude over, okay? Slide it over, make sure y'all see it. And then I'm going to go ahead, look, it's going to fit right there. Fits right there good. Now I'm going to then just, of course, kind of give myself a little room. There we go right there. So it goes on there nicely. The Busa worm actually goes on there pretty nicely, okay? So one thing, guys, about the worms. Now, once again, if I wanted to use this later, I'd put it back on there now and then see kind of how it fits and then glue it if needed. Like I said, I had a couple fish when I brought them in, the worms like this, and then I just kind of put it back here and get the glue, okay? Got this tree right here behind me. I don't want to get like snakes on me or some bugs or anything, okay, as I'm floating around. But guys, the worm, Where I like to fish the worm, I mean, Jimmy, you said brush piles, kind of help us out on the area. Guys, rounded points in the mouth of creeks is one thing that I like. One thing about this time of year is the brim spawn is happening. Our lakes have a lot of brim. So you can, if you like just to fish for a brim, go find the brim and then find your first brush pile nearby. But guys, I like to find the brush piles that are gonna be rounded points near ditches, drains, near flatter areas where those brim can spawn in, okay? It's because those bass are gonna use those brush piles as cover, then go eat the brim, or the brim around the brush piles and the bass are hanging around, they're going there and eating. Something like that's happening. But that's one way I like to look for it. I'm not gonna fish super deep right now. I'm fishing anywhere from 15 to 20 foot, 10 to 20 foot today. I've caught some fish out of brush piles in like that 10 to 15 range. They're not in the deeper ones yet for this time of year. Like I said, they're just not yet. So that's just one place I like to look for them. I also kind of guys will look for them, like I said, in the back of pockets, those shallower brush piles, like where I'm at right now, there's one shallow brush pile that has one big fish in it right now. I threw a glide bait at it. I probably should have thrown a worm. That thing came up there and I thought I was gonna eat it. But if you do move in the back of pockets, they're gonna be a little shallower, and that's okay. But for me, the bigger population of bass are typically on the mouths of the pockets, okay? That's just my deal with it, okay? Just my thing. And like I said, round-up points could be flatter areas, but where there's gonna need still be some deep water nearby. There we go. Here we go, the old Ozark rig. What a sweet bite that was. Let's go, okay, got him in the top of the mouth right there. Ozark rig. Here we go. Okay guys, when I'm fishing this big worm, okay, like with the Ozark rig, I'm gonna kind of still fish that traditional, but I'm not gonna, what I'm mainly gonna do is I'm gonna let the weight of the hook, or the hook in general, kind of let the worm do the action. So what I've been just kind of doing is just reeling it, like if it's through a brush pile, there's just a little bit of brush up there on that dock right now, but what I've done, I've just kind of reeled it and kind of pulled it through and let it go down. Also, what I have done is I'll hop it a little bit and then let it go. But I'm gonna let this thing kind of go. Like, I'm not just gonna do as crazy as much hops, but I'm gonna let this thing just kind of do the action with that weight as it's meant to do, that gliding action. Okay, so just kind of come back over here. Let's see, I'm looking over here. There's not much on this one as well, but like, let's say if I want to flip that thing, fish that thing right there off that grass. How cool would it be if I caught one? Now, if I've been flipping it, guys, with like a creature bait, I know it's ain't creature bait. I mean, I've just been kind of reeling it, letting that thing fall, reeling and letting it fall. And like I said, once again, just letting it do the action of itself. This wind just picked up all of a sudden. I came over here to kind of get out of the wind, and it just picked right back up. But yeah, guys, so that's just the kind of the retrieve of the worm. Also, I was going to mention real quick my one-on-one virtual lesson as something I'm doing that we used to do through Fish the Moment, but I'm doing it through myself. If you're interested in a one-on-one Google Meet lesson, we can talk about a lake, break down a lake, talk about techniques, patterns, talk about whatever you want for an hour through a Google Meet. Just go to my Jimmy Easterling Fishing Facebook below. Okay, guys, on equipment, I like a 7.2 to 7.6 medium heavy fast action rod. If it's a worm and jig rod preferred, that's great, because like I said, there are tips going to be made kind of more for it. I like that 7.2, but I also have a 7.6, just depending on your casting distance. You know, sometimes with that longer cast, you want a longer rod, but 7.2 typically is what I am doing with it. Now, guys, let's see. I got a variety of worms here. My colors, okay, for the worms, okay, like I said, this is just that plum apple. I believe this wild thing right here is this one. This is the red bug. Like the reds, you saw I pulled out Tequila Sunrise earlier. That's just for kicks and giggles at times. Let's see what else in here. I do have some watermelon candy for situations. Like I said, got watermelon candy. I try to keep it pretty simple though. Let's see. I like this color in the V&M right here. It's called the Texas Smoke. Okay, it's kind of a darker, but there's some green and purple and gold flake in it. That's a good little stain water color that I've liked. And then, yeah, guys, that's kind of really about it, you know. So I have a blue fleck in here, and then there's the plum, of course. But, guys, let me know if you've caught any fish. The Ozark rig comes in a couple sizes. This right here is the 3/8 ounce with a 5/0 hook. That's one I've been mostly using. I think they have a 3/16 with a 4/0 hook, and then an 1/8 with the 4/0 hook as well. There might be some more since then. But guys, let me know if you've had any success with the Ozark rig. Let me know if this right here, if you're ready, if you've already tried it with the big worms yet. If not, give it a shot. I'm telling you, it's going to give you more bites, give you a chance to catch more fish with the big worm, because everybody else is fishing at the traditional Texas rig. Go be different, catch more bass. We'll see you on the next one.